everybody, welcome to the show. I appreciate you tuning in for another brand new review. So what's in store for you here tonight? Folks, Max just rolled out a new romantic comedy horror film in the vein of films we've got in this year like Companion and Hard Eyes, and I am here to talk to you about it tonight. Folks, in movie reviews, we are talking The Parenting. But let's not waste any time and jump right on into things. If you haven't seen the trailer for The Parenting before, this tells the story of Rohan and Josh, a young couple who are on the verge of getting engaged, but first they have to meet each other's parents. Rohan and Josh reserve an Airbnb that unfortunately is inhabited by a demon. Can they survive the weekend? Can they get engaged? And can they get their parents out of there? And there it is, folks. That is The Parenting. Now, we have gotten a string of romantic comedy horror films over the last few years, and this is a firm reminder that while the romantic comedy in general has not really survived the heights that it had throughout the 90s and in the early parts of the 2000s, that horror is still very, very much keeping this genre alive. You know, I mentioned Hard Eyes, I mentioned Companion, but we got other films, Lisa Frankenstein, Your Monster, Fresh, Warm Bodies. There are so many romantic comedy horror films out there, and it really is a perfect combination of the genre. Because if you think of a lot of the tired tropes, I say tired in the best of ways, but a lot of the tired tropes that we go through in these romantic comedies, like, oh, hey, we're breaking up, but we still have to live together. Oh no, one of us lost our jobs, we have to keep it secret from the other partner. Oh, we have very eccentric parents. Is that going to break us apart? All these old tropes that we are very familiar with, if you just say, yeah, all that's happening, but there's also a vampire. Yeah, all that's happening, but the world is also ending. Things like that just add a little bit of extra spice to what we've gotten in these films so far. And I do think it's a logical progression because realistically, I think a lot of us had these big hopes that that's how romance really was back in the day. That what we saw played out in the 90s and in the early part of the 2000s really represented how romance truly should be, how people were going to interact, how dates would go, how comedic things would be, how you would make things terrible and then make things come back together in a great way. I think all of us had some hope in that, and we've realized that is just not how the world works. So if we understand that that was all a fantasy to begin with, why not just drop in something a little bit more fantastical with a monster? And that's what we get here with The Parenting. You know, Rohan and Josh, their plight here is that they haven't been honest with each other about what their parents are really looking for when it comes to their own partners, what they might be criticizing about, and not to mention how they're going to act around each other when their parents show up. We show that Rohan is very much trying to cover up and lie about Josh's job status, what he does, his interests, how he dresses, all these things because he doesn't want his own parents to look down upon Josh in a negative way. And of course, we know where that's going to lead to, this whole idea that Josh thinks that Rohan doesn't love him in the first place if he has to represent all these other things that he's truly not. And on Josh's hand, Josh is a little bit too carefree and not taking certain things seriously the way that Rohan wants. And because of that, that's going to cause some strife when these conversations start getting serious. And Rohan doesn't necessarily know whether that's somebody he might want to get married to for somebody who can't be serious at any point in their lives. These, again, are classic tropes that we are seeing, and they play out very, very well here. The Parenting, like a lot of other films in this space recently, works really well when it's bracing those romantic comedy elements. It does a phenomenal job with it. Now, in terms of the comedy itself, it is a funny movie. I found myself laughing a number of times and laughing pretty damn hard. There were two specific scenes involving Edie Falco that I thought were some of the funniest things I had seen on film in a while. One involves a bathroom scene with Rohan and Josh that had me busting out. And the second was actually only a little bit after that involved Rohan and Josh talking a little bit about Josh's love of singing and Edie Falco's character Sharon's reaction to that. Again, the cast in this is actually like one of the best combinations that we've gotten in an ensemble film in a little bit. You know, again, we have Parker Posey, Lisa Kudrow, Dean Norris, Edie Falco, Brian Cox, and that's without our leads in there of Nick Dodani, Brandon Flynn, and Vivian Bang. Again, such a well-rounded cast here that everybody really does get their own personal moments to shine. Everybody in this is actually really, really funny. And that is what really makes the parenting up, is the fact that we have a lot of very trustworthy actors here who kept me laughing throughout the entire film. When it comes to the horror aspects of this, though, that's where I found the parenting to be lacking in certain spaces. I think that the problem for me was the fact that the cold open, the beginning before we actually get to the present day setting of the story itself, had, in my opinion, a much different tone from how the horror is presented from the rest of the film. I feel that that opening scene very much presented the demon and the scares of this demon way more lighthearted, maybe not as violent, not as bloody, not as evil, honestly. Like, it kind of seemed like one of those movies to where we're going to turn around by the end of the film and like the demon is now like a member of this family. And like the demon ends up hooking up with like Aunt Matilda or something like that. Like, it very much seemed from the opening that that's kind of the tone of the film itself. But then as we actually get into the modern day setting of the story, we see that's not it at all. None of this is really being played for laughs that much, except for this recurring joke about puke throughout the film, which that was funny in a few spots. But beyond that, the scares are played fairly seriously. So they don't match the tone that was set up in the opening of it. Now, to its benefit here, I will say that one of the jump scares presented earlier on in this film involving Josh at the dinner table was one of the best jump scares I had seen in quite a while. It could be because it just completely caught me off guard, but I thought the entire execution of that was one of the true best that we had seen in a minute. And some of the other imagery there was really good as well, too. You know, the film again revolves around this Airbnb being inhabited by this demon that was raised so many years ago. And that demon is looking to find its way out into the real world, into the physical world, and has to possess somebody in order to do that. And it ends up setting its sight on Frank, played by Brian Cox. And the initial scene of showing how this possession comes around, that was some pretty scary imagery in that as well. And then showing how Frank himself has to deal with being possessed as well actually scared me a bit as well too. But beyond that, the film didn't really offer too much else in terms of the scares that met that level. And it could be that, again, the point of the scares was really just to add that extra hindrance as the problem to this romantic comedy. Because remember, there's always going to be an issue in movies like these that's going to break that couple up and eventually have to find themselves back together through some extreme, ridiculous plan that gets put together that finds them in the same spot and kissing and falling in love. And the same kind of thing happens here in the parenting as well too. So I think it's an idea of having to rewire your brain a little bit, that this is not going to be a horror film that does really good at romantic comedy, but it's a romantic comedy that has some good horror elements in it. And to that aspect, unfortunately, the horror itself just doesn't really meet the level that I think would make the most sense for it to do. Unfortunately, I just really feel here that outside of the few scares that I mentioned, it doesn't live up to what we would probably want. And it's not bad. That's the kicker. Like, the big thing with this is that I'm not pointing out that the scares are silly, that that the monster is dumb looking or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying in the least bit. It just doesn't actually improve the quality of the material that much at all. And after coming off a film like Hard Eyes, to where again the horror there wasn't bad either, but it also didn't really like add that much. It was like an extra ingredient, but it's like, yeah, it would have been fine without that ingredient as well too. It's hard to kind of see that happen here again. You're looking for a little bit better representation. So I'm very much hoping, very much hoping that, you know, if more romantic comedies and horror come our way, which they are absolutely going to, this is kind of the baseline, but we can't be okay with the baseline here. We have to go for something more than that, because you can be funny and you can have a great throwback to what we all grew up on, or what a portion of us grew up on, but a lot of us are here for the good horror as well too. And even if it's not going to scare us, give us something that we can look at and say, you know what, that elevated your material the way that it should have done. But I'm curious for what all of y'all thought of this one here. You can check out the parenting right now over there on Max. It's Meet the Parents, but with demons, folks. Tell me in the comment section here what you thought of this one, because I'm always curious about y'all's opinions. And of course, make sure to get subscribed, because I got more great reviews coming out your way, folks. You can subscribe to my stuff here at linktr.ee/T Scary Movie. If you get subscribed, that's going to give you access to the YouTube page for the video versions of the show, your favorite podcasting platforms, the audio only versions of the show, to my Letterboxd page for written reviews and movie rankings throughout the year, to my TikTok page for full episodes, movie news, and movie premieres, to my Twitch page for horror gaming, and my Fangoria shop page for a 20% discount off everything in the Fangoria shop. Take advantage of that, folks. Hit that subscribe button. I got more great reviews coming out your way. You do not want to miss my coverage of the end of season 2 of Mayfair Witches. We're heading into Leprechaun 3. Folks, I got so much great stuff coming your way. Don't want you to miss any of that. Hit that subscribe button. But that's it tonight, folks. I appreciate you tuning in. My name is T. We'll be talking scary movies. Stay scared.